was thinking.
Yeah.
It's okay. Looks like we may be live. Let's see if we get our little sound feedback here just to make sure I'm actually thinking. There it is. Okay. All right. Pop out my chat real quick. We will be going. Tonight we are back with Tag from Life Done Free. Tag, how you doing?
Doing good. Life's grand.
All right. So we were just talking and we were thinking that maybe we would talk a little bit about developing community and what that looks like and what you've been doing up there. And I guess I don't know if it's public knowledge where you're at. Do you talk about
Mhm.
that or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's what, Northeast Kansas
Yep.
area?
Yep.
Okay. Um, So, let's see. I guess while we're letting some folks roll in here, let me go over a few little capitalism things,
Yep.
and then we'll jump right into that.
Profit is not a dirty word.
Yeah, that's the way I see it too. I
It's
mean,
not.
I think it's good, but some people get their panties in a bunch.
No.
So, well, let me see. Why am I not seeing that one here? I will share my screen if I can figure out how to share it. There it is. All right. So first thing here is American Prepping Academy, the cell phone app. So my buddy and I have developed a cell phone app that essentially utilizes the YouTube embed links, and it goes out and it scrapes and picks those up and it incorporates them into the app so that within 24 hours of whenever anybody who's a part of the app uploads a video, it gives you a notification inside the app. And we've got 15 channels on here already. We're hoping that we can get Tag on there one of these days here soon. And and it's a pretty cool way. I'll just go over the channels that we have in here. It's a pretty cool way to stay up to date on the videos though, because YouTube just doesn't really notify anybody, and so it's just the way it goes. So we got Renaissance Marine TV, we've got Ethical Preparedness, we have Crafty Veteran, we have Rule the Wasteland, Stokermatic, Iridium 242, Leatherneck Prepper, which I think he's in the chat tonight, Tactical Comms, The Prepared Adventist, my secondary homestead channel, and I think that is about it. So you can get it for both Google Play and Apple, and it's totally free, and it does not collect any personal information whatsoever. So yeah, take a look at it, see what you guys think. There's a lot of different functionality in there. You can go to the website or to the YouTube website itself so that you can like and share and comment, or you can just watch it from the player within the app. You can search different topics. We've got, I think it's 4,700 videos in there so far. So there's a lot of content there. And if you're looking for a particular topic, whatever, you can search it. You can save for later, favorite, different channels and all that kind of stuff. So it's just an easy way to stay up to date on what's going on. With all of the uncertainty going on in the world, I think that you really should think about having body armor. I know everybody talks about firearms and guns and protecting yourself and all that kind of thing, by carrying your everyday carry weapon and all that. But if you know that you're going to go into a gunfight, like if you have something weird happen at your house at night or whatever the case may be, I think throwing on some sort of body armor, even just soft armor, it doesn't have to be your level 4 plates and all that, but a good set of soft armor makes a lot of sense because most home invasions, people are going to be using handguns. And they've got some pretty good deals over here at National Body Armor. And if you use the discount code Reality Survival, it'll save you 25% off. So that's a pretty good savings, and I think it's worth checking out. Okay, community. Hey, there you go. Yeah,
I downloaded it. Look at that.
what do you think of it so far? I mean,
Yeah, well, while you
just
said, Tag, get your butt over here, I opened
right.
my phone and downloaded the app.
All right, cool.
So I have no idea, but I will give you feedback for sure.
Yeah, cool. I appreciate it. And it's just been released a couple of months ago, so it's still fairly new, and we're still, working out any bugs or whatever. But also those people who have YouTube channels that want to be on the app, if you guys are watching or whatever the case may be, as long as you put out educational content on your channel, then we'll put you on the channel, or we'll put you on the app. We're not really looking for just all political commentary or whatever, but if you do some political commentary along with some educational content, then that's totally fine. And I think it's a good way that we could potentially all help each other grow, by talking about it to your, say if you decide to do it, you could talk about it to your people who watch your channel, your subscribers.
Yep.
And then, when people are downloading it from my channel, they'll see your channel and be like, oh, hey, I should check that channel out,
Yeah.
So I think it's a good kind of way to just spread the news on prepping, I mean, it doesn't
I
cost
think
anything.
that it does a lot also, I think, as far as growing the larger communities, right? I mean, what it helps us all do is, there's communities all over the place, and finding a way to yoke up with more people, is the ultimate force multiplier,
Yeah.
and the ultimate. And so
Yeah.
I'm all for it. I will absolutely fill it out. I'll absolutely put it on there.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and you have a pretty good app for that already as far as the community aspect of it. You want to talk a little bit about freestitting? Is it
Yeah, yeah,
freestitting.com?
freestitting.com. It's
Yeah.
it works a lot like, I don't want to say Facebook, but it's similar, in that there's an activity stream, and there's, different group pages, and there's, event calendars, and there's, lots of stuff in there. But
Mhm.
we built it in an effort to help people build community, because in my travels, I speak all over the country a lot, and I keep running up right there. Look at that. Yeah, look at that. Um,
It's got an app also. So
it's got an app also, yes.
yeah.
And so we built it really for that reason. And there's a section of it that has the state pages, and so you can actually go into Texas or whatever you want, in Tennessee, and actually begin to yoke up. Because I think at the end of the day, if we could figure out how to network all of the communities together for commerce, and all of the things that we do as a homestead. There's things on my homestead I can't grow,
Mhm.
but my buddy Jim Gale down in Florida can absolutely grow them, and they would love to have some of my apples or my
Yeah,
peaches, or whatever it is.
sure.
And so I think we built it purely for that. And then, we thought we would end up with, a couple thousand people on there. And within the first year, there was 20,000 people on there, and
Nice.
so just a bunch of homesteaders talking about how to, get out there and live free.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I mean, that's what we need to do is we need to start figuring out how to get away from all the big mainstream like funnels channels that the digital funnels that they kind of funnel us into and everything. I've recently been thinking about, starting to organically put more content on Substack,
Mhm.
and getting away from YouTube and all that kind of thing. I mean, so much. I mean, YouTube is a great place because there's a lot of that's where the big audience is. So you have to have, at least one foot in that pond. But um, I think that creating our own areas is probably just better, and that way you kind of know the audience you're talking to and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll see.
there's another one out there called it's John Bush and oh my goodness, my mind just totally went blank. Oh my goodness, Freedom
Is
Cells,
this
freedomcells.org.
okay?
And so I've had some conversations with them about figuring out how FreeStting can work with them on there, because they have a platform very similar, actually has the same back end.
Yeah.
Uh, Figuring out how do we do this so that again, we can help people grow and build community and yoke up, and Derek Bros and John Bush are the ones that put that one on.
Very cool.
I met Derek Bros. I spoke in Georgia at the Freedom. There was a Freedom conference down there. We were talking about exiting the technocratic state, and that was kind of the
Yeah.
topic. And I shared a stage with him, and anyway, we started talking. But I'd love to figure out how to get all these little things to network together, and your app, I'll absolutely put it on FreeStting, guaranteed.
Cool. Yeah, no,
Wow.
that'd be awesome, man. So you have kind of gone to some pretty unusual lengths as far as getting your community up there kind of brought together. Like,
Yep.
why don't you talk a little bit about how you went about that? Because I know you didn't live there. We had that interview initially where you kind of got forced into the situation where you're at, and so you're relatively new to the area, I guess, right?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I've lived in the Midwest pretty much my whole life.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, so I know it all pretty well, but yeah, I got kind of stuck in a spot where I had to, all right, I'm going to go fend for myself now, you know? And so we did a big threat and needs analysis, which is kind of what put us exactly where we are. But
What was some of the first steps you took to start growing community when you got there?
yeah, so once I kind of had my infrastructure in where I could take a shower, right? The basics. Once we had those kind of things in, we just started talking about how at the end of the day, no matter what I do, I can't do it alone. There's just, I'm telling you guys that coming from an off-grid homesteader, right, who tries every day to meet all of my own needs, I don't know how you'd ever do it alone. I don't think it's possible. And so we started thinking about what are ways we could do it. That's where FreestStting was born, out of that whole idea. And we started thinking about, okay, I need to go a little bit more nationwide for two reasons. One, to spread the message because the whole world made me mad and I was going to go be a rebel for a little while. But the other side was, how could I build my community? And it was super successful because, you know, the very first conference I ever spoke at was the Self-Reliance Festival in Camden, Tennessee, a handful of years ago. And from that very first one, there's two homesteaders who now live in my area, and a third that I know really well that's 100 miles from me that we've turned into be great friends. So we went on the road. We got put boots on the ground. We created a website that would do it. And then internally, we did do lots of things too. You know, we have our own newsletters and we have our own things that help build it from a local perspective versus, you know,
Yeah.
the bigger perspective.
Talk a little bit more about that local actions, like some as far as like getting out and getting involved in your county and getting to know people. Like
Oh,
what?
yeah.
Because I think a lot of people don't really know, like what are the first steps to take if let's say they manage to sell their house in the big city or what or big suburbs and they move to a rural area and you know they're getting their place set up or whatever. Like, what's the first things to do?
Oh my goodness, you know, I've talked about this in my speeches a few times, actually, this exact topic. And I always joke, I have a line I use in my speeches that says at the end of day one, you know, if I was successful and in a brand new area, I'd have a trunk full of eggs, you know, a back seat full of produce and a turkey named Roger in my back seat. Because I'm telling you what I'd be doing, I'd be going out and, you know, visiting with anybody that had a eggs for sale sign in their front yard. I mean, I'd be out at the, you know, Burger King at 5:30 in the morning while the old guys sit there and talk. I'd be getting involved in FHA, you know, Future Farmers of America. I would be, you know, going to every gun show, every feed store. And we have members of our community. We met literally at a feed store. They were
Yeah.
loading food in the back of a trunk. And because we helped them, the conversation started. And it don't have to be weird. People are like, oh, I can't talk to anybody. We're not, you don't go up to them and say, the world's
Hey,
coming.
I'm a prepper. I got a lot of guns.
Yeah,
I'm gonna steal my food.
yeah. You know, my favorite line to use when I meet somebody new is, world's an interesting place, isn't it? And just
Yeah.
shut up. You'll
Right.
know in 15 seconds whether you should continue that conversation.
That's true.
It's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't talk about my pantry. I don't talk about guns. I don't talk about any of those things. If they're loading chicken food, hey, how many chickens you got?
Yeah.
You know, any particular reason you picked that breed?
Right.
That's it. I mean, it's because I'm telling you, if someone answers back, yeah, I got chickens. I picked this breed because they're the best dual purpose bird, but they really specialize in foraging. That's my guy.
Right.
You know, it's not
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you just got to be willing to do your part, Sam. You got to be able to get out there a little bit and just talk to people. You know, waving at someone across Tractor Supply is not going to work. I'm telling
Right.
you, it's never going to work. You got to walk out and go, "What's up? How you doing?"
Yeah.
It's not complicated.
No, I think that's good. I think that that's a little outside of, you know, some people's comfort zones.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's important though. That's
Mhm.
you just have to be able to talk to people, you know. I mean, when I was a new law enforcement agent, that was one of our how we called our howdy exercise,
Mhm.
where you go out to a bar at night and you had to go and talk to somebody and just see how much personal information you could get from them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and for people who are introverts, that's terrifying,
Yeah.
you know. And but for me, I was just like blah 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 blah. You know,
Yeah.
I'm chatting people. I got this chick to give me your social security number, you know.
Oh, no.
So, but for some people, that's not easy. You know, it's very difficult to do.
But I think it gets easier as you go along. And you know, we as creatures, we train ourselves every day, right? We train ourselves whether to think positive or negative. You know, we train ourselves to exist in our bubble that we exist. And I'm going to tell you, it's so funny. I've been doing it for so long. I walk in and I'll notice a NRA hat. I'll
Mhm.
notice whatever, you know, whatever's going on them pretty quick. I'm
Yeah.
like, could be like-minded. Let me go say hi.
Yeah. I talked in a video, I don't know, it was probably during the COVID times where I was suggesting to people that, you know, if you wanted to start developing a list of names of people in your community and all that kind of stuff that could help take some action against the tyranny of, people shutting things down and all that kind of stuff. I was like, get a clipboard and go walk around when you see a Trump flag or a US, even an American flag or a don't tread on me flag or whatever the case may be, stop in, knock on their door and say, hey, this is who I am. I'm starting to put together a list of people. I just want to collect email addresses so that if we, want to come together and talk about certain topics or try to influence the town, the town mayor or the county commissioners or whatever on
Yeah.
certain topics, I'll put you on this email list and, we can maybe keep some of this
Mhm.
stuff from happening. I think that's a little bit more, ballsy, I guess. Most people aren't going to go up and knock on somebody's door. But honestly, like you said, you can get a pretty good feel for how people live by looking at their place. If they got a chicken coop out back, if they've got an American flag and a four-wheel drive truck and all those
Right.
things, like your chances are pretty good that you've at
Yeah.
least got some common ground with them.
Well, what's the worst that happens? That you started a relationship, you're no longer a stranger. So then fast forward 6 months, you're at a local auction and they're there and you say hi.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing bad that can come from it. But I would take it a step further in that we need to start penetrating the actual county commissioners. We need to
Yeah.
get someone from our communities to run and be elected. Same with the school board, same with the city council, because then you can really start making direct change. And then I would add a whole nother thing to what you said right there, which is inside your community, you should be creating a resource manual that tells you the good and the naughty and nice list that says, here's the 3 plumbers in our area. This guy's like-minded. These 2 are not. So that what we're doing is voting with our dollar, because at
Mm.
the end of the day, that dollar is the only thing they listen to. I
That's a
promise
great,
you.
that's a great point. Yeah, I hadn't thought about, categorizing local
Oh yeah.
businesses and stuff like that. But the left does that. That's exactly
Of course
what
they do.
BLM and all those guys do, and they go around and see who they can extort to, to basically support their cause and stuff. I
Yeah,
mean,
they're
you
picking
would,
winners and losers. Why can't we?
right. I mean, I wouldn't say you would try to extort them like they do, but you
No.
know, but definitely putting it out there as far as,
Yep.
here's businesses that support, the cause. I mean,
Yep.
so yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, yeah, I did that when I got here, and this was the first time that I have been involved in local politics at all. And I don't, it's not really political or whatever, but I just ended up getting on one of our local boards,
Mhm.
and it made a difference. I mean, just kind of tilted the board had always kind of been one way, and me and one other guy have kind of managed to tilt it the other way. So it's more leaning towards not being so oppressive. And it's been really an interesting journey to me to see how that works, because most people don't know how government works. They don't understand the processes and procedures and the criteria and all the town ordinances and all this kind of stuff that exists. I think most people go through life like just not even really knowing any of that stuff's there
Yeah.
unless you get involved in it. But the key thing I think that is important for people to know is if you learn it, you can use it to your advantage
That.
and you can hold people to account and all that kind of stuff and you can get them things changed. We had one guy who's in the process here in our town. He's in the process of submitting petition ordinances, which is basically you get 25 citizens to sign up for the
Mhm.
petition, and then that means it has to be put on the vote, and the town gets to vote for what he wants.
Mhm.
And I don't particularly agree with his position on these items, but I really admire him for doing it, and for being involved and trying to make a change in the direction that he, wants to see things go. So I agree with you. I think getting involved locally is hugely, hugely important.
Yeah. Well, there's no other way. But I mean,
Yeah.
the idea that you can go and move and live off grid and be 100% free and do everything for yourself is false. I'm telling you, you can't get
Right.
there. I know I live it. Because
Yep.
not everybody's going to have a salt mine or a gasoline plantation, or where you're going to get your oil filters for your lawnmower. I mean,
Sure.
there's just too much of it. You're just never going to get there. And so it's going to take others, and it's going to take community around you. I think we can get close,
Yeah.
but certainly as long as property tax is around, we'll never get there. But I think we can get close.
You mentioned earlier something about dinners. I don't know if that was before we went on the air or after. How do you maintain those relationships and all that kind of stuff? What
Oh
is
yeah, there's so many things we do. You know, we have our own text message chains, and we do all kinds of events, and I'll go through them just real quick for you. Some of the ones we do. So we do the Midwest Preparedness Project twice a year. It's a big festival that goes on. We do the Freeman Festivus in November. That's the community's holiday. So it's not Christmas, it's not Thanksgiving, it's the Freeman Festivus for the rest of us, right? And so we, so we sit down and have a big meal and hang out there. But there's so much more to it. We do homestead rotations. So, last year, a whole bunch of people will come to my house. Let's say 50 or 60 people, and we'll put up firewood. For an example, this just a couple months ago, we built a guy a whole house. We showed up, the foundation was there, a big stack of wood was there, and after it took 3 days worth of work, we got his whole house stood weather tight, ready for the next phase in 3 days. And so we do lots of those things. But then we also, just last Wednesday we had a local bakery, a local little cafe here called 1886, and she's like-minded, flies the black American flag out front. So she's super like-minded. Anyway, she closes at 2 every day, but she'll open up for us any evening we want. So we can call her and say, hey, we're going to come down on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. We'll have 50 people, and she'll open the restaurant just for us and then lock the doors behind us, and we'll sit and have dinners. We just did one on Wednesday this week. I think we got another one coming up next week. So, and then there's the newsletters, and there's a lot of things that go on that keep people engaged, and
Yeah.
that's all the big stuff. But then the micro stuff is every single day there is some homesteader at another homesteader doing something, right? Someone's solar system isn't working right, or someone needs some plumbing help, and it doesn't take a 50-person army to come fix. If
Right.
somebody needs somebody's help, I've got a buddy of mine who was an aircraft mechanic by trade, spent his whole career in maintenance. So if there's something that I just can't figure out from a mechanical perspective, he's a great guy to call.
Yeah.
Show up with his multimeter and off we go.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
so there's a lot. It takes a lot to get it going. But when people come to our community, I always tell them you have to promise me two things. The first rule is don't be a dick. If you can do that, life's going to be good. And then the second thing is be willing to do your part plus a little bit. If people agree to those two terms, man, life will be good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Have you guys done much or thought about doing like going in on cost share on like firewood processing machines and those kind of things? And
Yeah, so we own an excavator communally,
Mhm.
right now, and we just bought. I think the community. So we have a brand new program. It's a tool share program. We just bought a $700 or $800 laser leveler thingy bobber that about 7 families went in on, because it's just not a tool we'll use a lot. So yeah, there's lots of that kind of stuff that goes on, but not just with tools. There'll be times because we can get a big bulk buy. I bought a semi load of hardy board siding that will end up at 5 different homesteads, or animals. That's another big one. If it's time to go get cows, let's just say I can get a way better deal on 10 of them than I can get on 2 of them.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
So we do lots of that kind of stuff. Lots.
That's cool. That's cool. What are your thoughts on you're talking about building and building materials and stuff? I've recently been looking into like the Barndominiums and that kind of thing. And what are your thoughts on those styles of
Yeah.
buildings?
I think if you plan on building it and that's your forever home, I think they're wonderful.
Hmm.
The problem is when it comes time to sell them, and you get people who have a stigma to them, and some of those kind of things. But I don't see anything wrong with them at all. There's one 2 miles from me that's black and gray, and Bud, I'm telling you, this is a nice house. It is
Sharp, isn't it?
it is
That's kind of the new style is that
Yeah.
black and gray color.
Yeah.
They look really nice. I also learned that recently there's a bank out of Kansas City. I think it's First Federal out of Kansas City that'll actually finance them on a construction loan
Yeah.
and let you act as the general contractor and all that kind of thing, which I was like, man, that's pretty cool because I hadn't seen that before, where a lot of times you just have to cash flow it, you just have to kind of do it yourself. But
Yeah, I think
so
alternative building practices are going to become more and more prevalent because the price
yeah,
to do anything these days. I'm lucky I'm handy enough I can do most of it myself.
right.
But man, trying to hire a contractor, trying to, I poured, I'll give you an example. I poured my basement for $22,000. I did all the work myself. I know
Mhm.
a guy that just recently paid $120,000 to have a basement poured because he had to hire it out.
Jesus,
I know, right? I'm like,
ridiculous. What?
mm,
That's a huge house or something. Because normally you'd be somewhere in the, probably 25 to 45 range for a normal size house, right?
yeah, mine was 22 and I did every bit of the work myself.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's crazy. Hmm. So let's talk a little bit about animals. We were talking
Yeah.
before on animals and that kind of stuff. Cattle is one. I'm sort of on that carnivore kick,
Okay.
and eating a lot of beef and all that kind of thing. What is your thought about being self-sufficient when it comes to beef production and all that?
Yeah, that's such a big word. It's like when people
Well,
say,
I mean, yeah, as much
I
as
mean,
you can.
that's a big word. People say
Yeah,
like, I'm off grid. Well, that does not mean you're off matrix.
right.
That just means you're off grid.
Yeah.
So when you talk about self sufficiency, so you can get a cow and you can graze them like where I live. I live in a cold climate part of the year, so they can graze from spring, summer, and fall.
Okay.
But come winter, I'm paying to feed them, or I'm baling the hay in my field, which is what I do, in order to get them through the winter. But you're still supplementing it with sweet feed. You're still got the occasional vet bill. You still got some of those things. So to say you can be
Yeah.
self-sufficient, I don't think it's possible. But I think you can get close. In my family, we butcher one cow and one pig every year,
Hmm.
and then we supplement it with the chickens and the turkeys and the fish, and because I have all of those on my farm,
Yeah.
through the year. But we are 100% self-sufficient. Well, I don't even want to say that because you still have a vet bill and you're still buying some sweet feed, right? But
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
can produce 100% of our protein needs on my farm today.
Okay.
I'm not there on vegetables and fruit yet, but I am there on meat.
You said with cows, you're doing Dexters. Is that what it was?
Yeah, yeah. We
Have,
have Dexter cows.
have you figured out like what's the initial cost to purchase a calf and kind of the life cycle development? What does it end up costing you per pound and that kind of thing if you
Yeah.
break
So
all that down?
Dexters are going to be more expensive, right? So
Okay.
like, let's say if you just go to like I'm in cattle country. So, I could go buy a whole cow for probably, I'm talking about at butcher age, right? Ready to be butchered, for a couple $1,000. And then, you take them down and they charge you, $1 a pound for processing and all of that stuff. But so by the time I'm done with it, I'm getting pretty close to that $4 a pound range. But that $4 a pound includes all your hamburger, all your steaks, all your roasts, it's all the same price, right? Because they don't
Yeah.
care, what you do with it. And then we just take it home and, stick it in the freezer. And, the cow, say you have a 1,000-pound cow, you're going to get, 750 pounds of meat or 700 pounds of meat, whatever that is. Now, probably not even that much, 600 pounds maybe. Because, the bones and all that stuff. Now, we take
Yeah.
most of the stuff because we use it for other things. The bones go to the dogs. The fat that comes out of them, my wife renders down, and she
Hmm.
makes shampoos and lotions and soaps and, all kinds of witchcraft,
Yeah.
stuff. So we try to use as much of it as we can. But yeah, so anyway, we go through one full cow and a pig every year, plus the turkeys, the chickens, the fish, the other protein sources.
Very cool. And so you don't do you butcher your own Dexters then, or do you
Yeah. So
or do
when
you
I
buy
actually,
from a lot or
yeah, no, I'll tell you a funny story. So when we decided we were going to live off grid, one of the things that was on my must list was a separate processing kitchen
Hmm.
away from my house. Now, my wife will tell you that I did it because I love her and she needs her own processing kitchen. That ain't the truth. The truth is, I did it because the days of her taking 3 roasters out and rendering lard in my kitchen for 2 days are over.
Yeah.
That stuff stinks. And so it's a little bit of self-preservation, but we have our own processing kitchen. It's all, I found an edible arrangement store that went out of business and I bought up all their stainless steel. So she's got a gas oven and all stainless steel. And so she can process not just meat, but the harvest from the fruit trees and my wife's a beekeeper. So we got to process the honey and, you got all those kind of things going on. So yeah, we can do a lot of it ourselves, but we can also take it away if we choose to, depending on, only so many hours in the day. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, for sure. So let me switch gears a little bit about,
Yeah.
we were talking earlier, I'm not too far off from being able to retire and looking at buying a piece of property and figuring out some sort of an off-grid, homestead situation. What do you think the time frame is from the time that you close on your land until, I mean, you can be relatively comfortable. What should I expect when I'm coming up to that?
Oh, what a great question. I mean, there's so many it depends in there. I mean, how do you build, right? So
Yeah.
let's start with that. So to me, when I got mine, it was critical I could get a place to lay my head.
Hmm.
And if I could get, it didn't even have to be big, just a place to lay my head. I could take a shower. I could use the bathroom, right? Just the basics
Hmm.
to get in. And so getting to that spot for me probably took 7 or 8 months for me to do, and I did it all myself. And that was what we call pod one. I built my house in a series of pods because I
Yeah.
didn't want to bankroll it. I wanted to roll it out of my pocket. And so that part didn't take very long, but the time really comes into, even once you get beyond the house, it's the fencing and the barns and the water. All my animals have automatic waterers that are gravity fed, that are pumped from rainwater via solar. And so
Sure.
I mean, that stuff takes a long, long time. But I think if as soon as you broke away and said, okay, hey, I got to get goal number one is if the shit hit the fan tomorrow, I need a place to lay my head. I'm going to build a 600 square foot kitchen, bedroom, and bathroom. It'll be pod one in my house. I mean, if you worked on it every single day, 4 or 5 months, you'll be there.
Yeah. Well, what is your thought on doing we've talked about the pod style in that first interview we did. What is your thought on mini houses as far as like these sheds and different things that people do, or buying them on a trailer or living out of an RV, or some of those different kind of low dollar investment options. What's your thoughts on those?
Yeah. So we actually have people in our community who live in these. So I actually have a ton of experience right here. I think it just really comes down to what your goals are. For me, I didn't want to do that because I believe that there's dark days ahead of us. And because I believe that, I knew that my kids, I have 2 older boys,
Mhm.
that someday they're going to be married with 1.3 kids. And so I actually built a master suite in my house for each one of my kids too, so that they had a bathroom and so that they had a spare room for the kids and that they could have their own privacy, even though we're all lumped up together. So I think it just depends on your needs. Some of the freest people I know is actually a channel called Hacks for the Homestead, and they are super free, and they live in a small Amish type cabin like that, but they're older. They don't have dependents. It's just the 2 of them and their dogs, and they're 100% happy.
That's cool.
I love the way they live. It's different for me because they have a separate building for their kitchen, and they have right, so they live differently, which is fine. But I think there's nothing wrong with it at all, and I think you have to be able to do what you can do. Not, well, what can you swing at, right?
So explain that a little bit. That's an interesting concept because I've kind of thought of that before. So they have like one shed that's like a kitchen, one shed that's like where they sleep, one shed that's like that. That's actually an interesting concept, because especially if you're off grid or you're trying to live off of solar and all that kind of stuff, you can kind of just shut that unit down when you're not using it and kind of go to the other one. And
Yeah. So their house, I've been in it many times. Let me back up. So their property has 2 families that are on it, and they
okay.
both live in those tiny houses, and they do everything together. But so if you go in their house, they have a very small kitchen, like one little countertop, a sink, and a refrigerator, right?
Mhm.
Nothing, wood stove, just the very, very basic. So, if they want to get up in the middle of the night and make a sandwich, they certainly can, right?
Mhm.
But then beyond that, their big cooking and those kind of things, they have a separate building that is their kitchen, and it has a full big kitchen in it. Where they could process their animals and they could, cook for the community. We've gone over there and done community rotations there where we were. Last one was firewood, and they fed us all. We all went in the kitchen, sat down, and ate
Yeah.
lunch, and went back to work.
That's
So
you've got my brain firing off here. Thinking about this, because I've kind of wanted to set something up where my kids could come home if they wanted to,
amen.
like you were talking about,
Yep.
and doing something like that. Like if you had a main one big kitchen, you save a ton of money because then you only got to outfit one big kitchen. Everybody could use it,
Correct.
as different times or whenever they needed to or whatever, and then have separate living spaces or whatever. That's an interesting thought, almost like a communal kind
Yeah.
of thing or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I think it does the important thing, which it provides sovereignty and it provides privacy, right?
yeah,
Because people are going to get upset at each other. But if anybody knows this, you know this, JJ. When the grip tightens, when
yeah.
the stress is on, you're going to have a lot of problems.
Personalities come
Yeah,
out.
right. So there's going to come a time where we're going to have to retreat to the privacy of our bedroom, right, in order to get a break. And so I think it's critical. This is why typically I'm not a big fan of the hippie, nothing negative, the hippie communal living kind of process, because I need a place to go shut the door.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
you know
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that's cool. Huh. Yeah, I'm in that point where I'm just considering all these options. I'm
yeah,
I'm trying to figure out like what I really like the idea, the pod idea, like like you've done, where you kind of build with the high sides and then you can kind of add
work your
on,
way out. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of work your way out and everything. I think that's super smart. Um, I don't know if I can. I'm pretty good at construction. I worked construction for a few months when I was younger. I don't know if I'm quite there to be able to do the entire thing myself or whatever, but I could probably, if I needed to, I could probably do it.
I guarantee you, you could do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
I guarantee it.
it's a big commitment. You know what I'm
It's a
saying?
huge
Like
commitment.
where you're
But if
like,
you're retired and your only
yeah,
job then is get on YouTube every few days or whatever it is, you got time to do that. You know, my buddy,
yeah,
we call him Indiana, but he was I talked about him earlier. He was an aircraft mechanic, retired and got out of the military, but he knew nothing about it, and he's hanging drywall and pulling wires every day today.
yeah,
He is learning as you go, and that man will build his own house, and someday his grandkids will say, "Look, that's the house that Grandpa built," or
yeah,
whatever. Right? I mean, it's pretty cool, man. Pretty
yeah.
cool.
That is. Yeah, and I think I mentioned on the last live stream, I need to, I still have to learn more about trusts and how to structure the land appropriately and all that kind of stuff so that you don't get caught up in probate and all those kind of issues. I mean, I'd like to I'd like to have the administrative side of all of that figured out, kind of I wish somebody would write a book geared towards preppers for that administrative side, like because a lot of times the stuff that I've seen is not as focused so much on that. It's more about like, normal suburban estate planning and different things like that. It doesn't really focus on the country side of it. So
Well, and I'm telling you something, bud, prepping that merges to homesteading has its own separate set of needs. It's different than homesteading in a lot
talk
of
about
different ways.
talk about
What's
that a
that?
little bit. Talk about that a
Well,
little bit.
okay, so let me give you an example. So everybody probably in the audience today has heard of it's chicken, red chicken, or Rhode Island Red, right? Everybody
Yeah.
have heard of Rhode Island Red chicken? Okay,
Yeah.
so they're a great dual purpose breed, but they're fat and lazy and they don't, scavenge.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So what that means is that from a homesteader, that's great because they grow pretty good sized. You're going to get nice sized chickens out of them. You can harvest them, but you're going to be feeding them their whole lives.
Oh,
So I think when you come from a prepping world, you look at it a little bit different, right? I was a prepper first, homesteader second. I evolved to be a homesteader.
right, right.
So because of that, I look at it differently. I'm like, okay, so what's the best dual purpose bird that is the best scavenger,
The
that's got
most
good eyesight,
self-sufficient.
that's got
Yeah.
good heat and cold tolerance? I'm willing to give up a couple pounds of meat so that I get a scavenger with good eyes and good predator awareness, right? So I just think the way you go through it is different if you come from the prepper world versus
Hmm.
the homesteading world.
No, that makes sense. So you're looking at more of like which animals can be the most self-sufficient
That's right.
themselves.
That's right.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Which animals take the least amount of my energy capital? And am I willing to gamble that pound of meat for, let's say, 400 hours of less work that year?
And which brand is it that you kind of settled on, or which
The Sussex, the speckled Sussex is what is out there. Well, I have several different kinds, but a lot of barnyard mix too. But the speckled Sussex are good at all of those things. They're not going to be as big as some of the other ones, and they're not. In fact, their egg production isn't going to be as good, right?
what
So
do they get on eggs production? I know
oh,
the Rhode Islands
two
are like 300 a year or something. What's
yeah, like
the
200 a year, 220 a year
okay?
out of Sussex versus some of them that are in the 300s, 350s even.
Yeah,
It's a
but
give
if
and
you're
take.
getting more self-sufficiency on the bird, you can have more birds for less feed cost and still end up with more eggs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
so
is prepping that
that
evolves to
math work.
homesteading.
Yeah, that math
Right.
works. Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly where it's at. But it's true in everything, not just birds and construction and the way you lay something out. And security was a big important thing to me when I imagine most homesteaders don't even consider it early on.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I just
Principal property and that kind of thing. How are you on a tertiary road as opposed to being right next to a freeway or whatever and all
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we began this journey with a threat and needs analysis because I come from being a prepper first.
Hmm.
I don't know how many people go through those things, but
Talk about that analysis a little bit, just kind of the high points of it.
yeah, yeah. So it's a super fascinating process. Anybody who's looking at buying land, I would encourage you to go through this. I would just absolutely encourage you to do it because you'll be amazed at what you discover. So what I did was I said, okay, what are my 10 biggest threats that I perceive?
Hmm.
And so then I would lay those threats out on a map of the United States. And so I'll give you an example. The number one on mine was people.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be around people because I know that good people are going to do horrible things when their kids are hungry.
So you get a population density map and start.
Population density. So I started right there. So because of population density, I cut off everything east of the Mississippi River and I cut off everything west of the Rocky Mountains. So it left me this strip going right up the center. And so, and then while I was at it, I'm like, well, I could also put the Missouri River there. Okay, so let's cut that off. So now I've even got this little thinner strip.
Yeah.
So then so you lay in all of your threats. And so I'm not going to get into mine exact ones other than that first one, but
Yeah.
I looked at them, plotted them all out, and then I laid over that map my needs. So my needs would be things like I wanted good soil. I wanted a conservative population wherever I was going to live. I wanted decent rainwater of at least 30 inches per year. Right. So it's those kinds of things. And when you laid them on top, I came into 100-mile circle.
No kidding.
Yep.
It's sort of just basically your assessment of what you wanted to have and where you wanted to live just narrowed you into this is the ideal place.
Yeah. And I didn't use my exact threat needs analysis, but I have a video where I went through the whole process on a video.
That's pretty cool.
Honed right into a county. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, check out his channel and subscribe to him. It's Life Done Free, right?
Yep.
At Life Done Free.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I did a similar process, but not exactly like that, where I talked about like the 8 best states to buy bug out retreats and sort of went through like, okay, it's got to be a constitutional carry state. It's got to have reasonable taxes. It's got, the same general process, but not so much threat focused or whatever. And so that's pretty
But
cool.
I think the political side plays a role to people that's important to, right? And this is what's neat about doing something like that is to everybody, it's going to be a little bit different. And I think you can absolutely be a FreestSttter living in an apartment in New York. I think you absolutely can. I wouldn't choose that life for me.
I was going to say, maybe expand on that a little because I'm not sure I can follow that logic.
Okay. So now I'll expand on it real quick. So here's the thing: freedom is nothing more than being able to live your life according to your terms. That's what freedom is.
Sure.
And if you're living life according to your terms, I think you can do that anywhere, wherever that happens to be for you.
Sure. Yeah.
Me, freedom is living life according to my terms is producing my own food, and 100% of it, which I have not gotten to, but you're not getting there in New York in an apartment, but that's mine.
Yeah.
Freedom doesn't work when we push our beliefs and stuff onto other people. They have to be free to believe what they want to believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me,
so if you prioritize being in the city with a high social life and being able to eat out at 4-star restaurants every night, then that's what you're saying is that would be
congratulations.
A situation.
You're living your life and you're living your life according to your terms. Congratulations. High five.
Yeah.
Not for me, but but that's okay. My threats are different, right?
Right.
That person's threats might be, oh my goodness, the warmongering, MAGA maniacs are coming, whatever. Right. I mean, so who knows?
Deplorables are coming.
Right. The deplorables are coming. The deplorables are coming. So who knows? But so I think it's about identifying what freedom is to you. I think it's about identifying what your threats are. It's identifying what you want out of your life and then building a map to get there, and just what are the 15 steps that take you to get that map accomplished? And if whatever step 1 is, what's the 12 steps inside of step 1? And why aren't you doing step number 1? I mean,
no, that makes total sense. I mean, I've been gearing towards this for a long time, knowing that this is where I want to end up and all that kind of stuff. But it is when you get to the point of making that decision and sort of, cutting those ties and going to it and everything like that. It's a little nerve-wracking. I mean,
it's scary.
I've moved lots of times, you know what I'm saying?
It's
like
scary.
but when you're talking about making a big commitment like that and all that kind of on your own with no support and everything.
Scary. Very, very scary.
Yeah. But I think it's pretty rewarding too, though. I've never talked to anybody who's done it who had any regrets whatsoever.
No, none.
No,
It's scary, but they say that you can't have freedom. You have to pick between freedom and safety. You can't have both.
Yeah.
And so you have to deal with the scariness of it. If my power goes out, bud, guess what? There's nobody to call.
Right.
If my plumbing goes out, there ain't nobody to call.
Yeah.
If I lose water, there's nobody to call.
Right.
So that's the scary part. But at the same time, I don't even remember what it's like to pay an electric bill.
Yeah.
Or a mortgage or a car payment or a sewer bill or a water bill.
And how would you say that for your situation, if I remember right, on the last interview we talked to, you said your monthly output in bills is about $800 a month.
Yep.
what has that done for your bank account in relation to what you have to spend on
Yeah.
your farm to maintain all that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's important that I'm going to use a term here I want everybody to remember called backside money.
Mhm.
This is a really, really, really important term, in my opinion, to getting free. So let me explain them real quick and then I'll answer your question because it just is relevant.
Yeah.
Front side money is how I'm going to go make more money, basically, right? I'm going to go work an employer. I'm going to open a business. I'm going to, whatever it is, I'm going to make more money. Backside money is I'm going to pay less taxes. I'm going to have less output. I'm not going to have a mortgage. I'm not going to have an electric bill. I'm not, going to have those kinds of things. And so, and we talked about this in the last time you and I visited it used to take me $7,700 a month to break even before I went down this road. That's what I had to make because the wife wanted a Beamer and whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to get there. And so when you work it backwards, me and my wife decided we were going to set out a goal for a McDonald's life. And what we mean by that is that I could pay all my bills working at McDonald's to
Nice.
get to that point. But
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I have so much more money than I've ever had in my life. I don't pay
Really?
anything. I mean, I still bring in pretty good income because I own other businesses and do other things. I have no
Yeah.
bills. It's
Yeah,
all
that's great.
invest in my farm. It's all, whatever, whatever we decide we want to do.
Yeah. No, and that's I have a buddy who is a retired air marshal. He's been on the program a couple of times, and he said the same thing. He's like, and he lives down in the Ozarks, and he's like, I at working for the government, I always lived paycheck to paycheck, and I'm making a six figures income, and
Yep.
I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And he's like, since I've retired, he's like, I have way more money than I ever did,
Way more.
and I don't rely on it. I think it has a lot, he said, I think it has a lot to do with the attitude that, oh, the check's coming next week. I don't have to worry about it. And
Yep.
versus the homesteading kind of lifestyle of like, I'm not spending that money unless I have to.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm going to take care of the things that I need to do, but I'm going to be judicious with it because I don't have that constant inflow. And so it kind of changes your mindset a little bit.
I think the other thing it changes is you start in your brain start thinking about how I can automate a system or how can I spend a little bit of money in order to save me all of that time and that energy, and you start managing it just very, very different. Like I don't look at it as, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ as I used to. That was my
Right.
old life. Today I look at it like, man, if I could make that feeding system, let me back, I'll use water because we did this last year.
Mhm.
If I can make it to where I don't have to carry buckets of water anymore, if I can make it where it just does everything automatically, all by itself, that's that much more free time I can dedicate to something else.
Yeah.
Free up doing something else. And so to me, it's just this big game of, the gamification of homesteading,
Yeah.
trying to earn my badges.
So you haven't really gone down the road of trying to um, make money from the homestead yet. You're focusing on the self-sufficiency aspect first before you get there. And so I guess that your recommendation would be for people to do that as opposed to trying to go into homesteading with the idea that they're going to make money from doing
Yeah.
things, or what is your thought process there?
I would warn people if you think you're going to buy 30 acres of land and get out there in August and by December have an income, you are vastly mistaken. Okay. Because
Right.
there's so much infrastructure that has to go in fencing and you got to buy the animals and those animals have to grow up and you've got to figure out the feed systems and the water systems and you got to figure out your connections to where do you get everything from and you got all this stuff to do. We don't sell anything off our farm because I think it's silly to sell anything off my farm until I'm producing 100% of my own needs. And until I master that, I just don't, I think it's silly, but most of the homesteads around me sell eggs or
Mhm.
pork or beef and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, again, it comes back to your definition of freedom. My definition of freedom is the government has no more stroke over me. They can't dangle a carrot in front of my face because I don't have to ask permission because I have my own shit.
Right.
So I think it's just preference.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Hmm. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, life's good, man. It's like I said, it's a challenge and all that, but I can't complain at all.
What do you think the biggest challenges are?
Oh, energy capital, 100%. I'd put that at the top list. Is there's only so many hours in the day. And
Yeah.
then you also have to make sure that you're taking time for your spouse, that you're taking time for your kids if you have kids, and taking time to just recharge, right?
Right.
You can't work 17 hours a day every single day, 365 days a year for 20 straight years. It just ain't gonna work. So it's just trying to, always tell people that homesteading is nothing more than a game of management. All it is. Me and my wife, before I came up here tonight, we were talking about okay, so the first incubation has to happen on this day because it's dependent on this other event that happens on this day, which we, by the way, we got to get ready for the new batch of turkeys on this day. And so we're chasing the sun in the calendar and trying to, figure out how to become the most efficient we can. I tell people this all the time. We are super hard workers, but we are not efficient. Now understand, this is coming from someone who ran financial holding companies. So my definition of efficient is different than some people.
Yeah.
My wife would tell you she's plenty efficient, but she ain't. And, you know, um, so I think for me, it's just energy capital. And where do you give it in any given day? Do I go spend my day to day building fence, or do I go spend my day to day, whatever is out there, for the day, and just trying to manage through that, to me, is the hardest part.
Yeah.
But you know what the crazy thing is, bud? I don't hate any of it.
Sure. Yeah, I know if you enjoy it and you get a sense of satisfaction, when
Yeah.
you look at it and
Yeah.
all that kind of thing. I mean, yeah, after you're done, like I did the fence in my backyard here for my dogs, and it was only, I don't know, 300 feet or linear feet or something like that. It wasn't a whole ton. But we're in New Hampshire, which is the granite state.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
was let me just say it was challenging because
Yeah.
every hole was a battle. It
Yeah.
was it was a terrible battle. I mean, I ended up taking a 4 foot pipe and welding it off the back of my post hole auger so that I could hang on it while my son lowered it to penetrate down into the
Yeah.
into the rocks and stuff. And I even took one of the auger bits that I broke and I made it so it was like a spiral like this, so it would go down between the rocks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean it was a huge challenge to do. It was actually one of the most hard fences I've ever done.
Yeah.
But now that it's all done, keeps my dogs in. I can look out there and like, yeah, it looks good, and it kind of gives you a sense of satisfaction. So,
And we always refer to that in my community as new level, new devil.
yeah,
And
there you
that every time we level up, there's a whole
go.
nother set coming.
Yeah,
But we try to celebrate all of those things. Like someone will send me a picture of my community of, let's say, a fence they built.
hmm.
And I always reply a lot the same thing: 0.00001% for your congratulations.
There you go. Yeah.
Keeps us motivated, or keeps me motivated at least.
Prior to we'll wrap it up here pretty quick,
Yeah.
but before we go, if you had to list, like, just off the top of your head, what items do you think that people should consider investing in prior to getting the property? What would be the big 5 or 10 items or whatever that you think would be helpful for them?
Well, I think what piece of property you end up with dictates some of this.
Okay.
Right? Like you were talking about the rock.
Mhm.
Where I live, you could dig 30 feet. You're not hitting anything but topsoil and clay.
Gotcha.
You're not hitting anything. I mean,
Yeah.
so my need would change a little bit. If I was in your area, being able to figure out how to efficiently get through that rock would be a big priority to me, right? Because fencing
Yeah.
is so critical. But um, you know, for me, I think one of the best purchases I made is I bought a used skid loader. I spent $15,000 I bought it from a golf course that was going out of business.
Mm.
And that thing, oh my goodness, it's just such an energy saver. But I think before someone buys anything, I think if I was them, what I would do is understand where you're going, go through the process, understand what the dirt is. If you've got, like where I live, I've got a foot of topsoil and 27,000 miles of hard clay. How do you grow and stuff like that? Build your knowledge base to a point that you understand where the apple tree should go,
Gotcha.
because it matters. It
Sure.
absolutely matters. And you can tell, you go onto a farm and they've got 5-year-old apple trees that are 6 foot tall. They didn't do that right.
Yeah.
you know
Too
um,
close to the cedar trees
yeah.
or something.
Yeah, I think there's another thing there too. We talked about chickens earlier tonight, JJ, and understanding what do you want them to do for you.
Hmm.
Understanding those things will it'll save you so much money. It's kind of like use it in the gun argument. The first AR I ever bought had a carry handle and an A2 front sight, and I loved it
Yeah.
till I seen the next one, and then the next,
Right. Yeah.
and then the next one, and then the next one. Right? I should have just bought that one, the Daniel Defense, the first time out the gate. Right? Saved
Sure.
me a lot more money. So I think just to educate yourself, understand where you're going, do a threat and needs analysis. Go on my website and download the ungovernable score and identify how many places you're a slave to. Right?
Right.
Go do those kinds of things so that what you get to do is walk into it with a great vision of where you're going. I can't tell you how many people build a chicken coop who now wish they wouldn't have built it there.
Right.
Because they understand. And so I would do that first. Save your pennies and get dirt. Invest in dirt. Buy dirt, buy dirt, buy dirt.
There you go. So your thought process is, for the most part, get the land.
Yep.
Don't worry about getting the tools and stuff, and then you can figure it out based off of the piece of property you end up with on
Yeah.
what your priorities might be.
I mean,
Uh,
there's some universals. I mean, my Milwaukee Impact that I use every single day on something. I mean, that's a must
yeah,
have,
right.
right? I mean, just stuff like that. But yeah, I think I would get the land. I would do a huge process of understanding what you have, where
Mhm.
you at in the runoff, right? Where are you at in the fallout? Whatever matters to you, and
Yeah.
then let that dictate what you do next.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's probably good advice. All right, I'm going to look through the chat here and see if we have any questions. If you guys have got any questions for Tag before we get off here, put them in all caps or tag me in the chat or something. And otherwise, I'll look through here real quick, and then we'll be getting off. Let's see.
I'm excited you're retiring, JJ. Congratulations, dude. Like super.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Ah,
It's been a long time. I joined the Air Force in 1996, and I did 8.5 years, almost 9 years of active duty, and then I've been a civilian employee since then. And so I'll come up on my 20 years of civilian time
yep.
um, in July of 2025.
Mhm.
So. It's kind of a good deal. We're here in New Hampshire because my work is out of Boston, so that's the highest cost of living area. So we get like a 30% cost of living allowance. So if I retire now, I'll make 15% more than I would if I retired elsewhere in the country, which, I'm kind of like, because I had contemplated taking another assignment, like holding off, waiting a little bit, but I'm like, I'll probably not end up back in a high cost of living area, so I just need to cut loose,
You
just
know,
be done
well,
and
they
just.
say Kansas is really nice this time of year. Just saying.
Well, hey, I'm from Kansas City, so
Yeah.
I grew up in Grain Valley, Missouri,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, and so I went to school at Northwest Missouri State,
Okay. Yeah.
and I was only a year and a half or something like that, and ended up going down to Barton County Community College down
Yeah.
in Kansas, and I've spent a lot of time, and we lived in Omaha as well, so I'm real familiar with that whole triangle of space down there. Um, and it really comes down to our kids and where they go. We've got, two adult kids that are outside the house already, and if we can convince them to come back to the Midwest, then that's probably where we'll go. If they go someplace else, we might consider, wherever, like North Carolina has been thrown out. Um, Southern Virginia has been talked about, and then, as well as Tennessee and Alabama and Missouri and the Ozarks, and
Yeah.
it's some place where there's sort of a crescent, like you were talking about earlier, where you can find decent cost of living and decent properties and all that kind of stuff. And so we're trying to piece all that together to figure out where. But yeah, I would love to be able to fall into a pre-existing community, and it's something that our people have already got a lot
Yeah.
of things going for them. So yeah, that would be really, really cool. We got one question here from Twigs24, says best place to find land. So that's sort of, and he said website or whatever. But yeah, that's sort of along the lines of what we were just talking about. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a million places to look, right? I mean, obviously, watch the realtors, watch the local Facebook pages of whatever area. Once you've done your threat and needs analysis and you know where you want to go, this is exactly what I did. And I found my circle, so I started watching all the Facebook groups. I joined all the towns, like, you know, people paying attention in Omaha, right? Those kinds of groups, right? And I started following all of those. And I also went and got on my boots on and went and started talking to people. I actually ended up attending a meeting that another guy was in and befriended him. And the next thing you know, we find out a piece of land may come up for sale. I went knocking on their door, bought the place before it ever hit the market, bought it cheap before it ever hit the market. So you just got to be committed to the process. You got to be more
Yeah.
committed to it than you are to Starbucks. You got to be more committed to it than you are the latest movie that came out or whatever it is, or the
Yeah.
Chiefs game. Okay, Common, Kansas, right?
Right.
And you'll find it, but do all of it. Do all the above, because then something's going to pop along the way. Don't get discouraged. It will absolutely happen. Just do it all.
There you go. I like it. This is an interesting question. Somebody said the lamp, there's the lamp is light. It says, I've got some 20 something friends that are priced out of everything. I told them to try to get land, but the question is how. And this is a big problem. And this is one of the things that I've been thinking about. I talked earlier about trusts and stuff, and I've been thinking about this with relation to my 20 something kids, because I think they're also in that situation where they're not going to be able to probably buy land on their own for at least another 10, 15 years. And my thought was that we might consider establishing a family trust. And the idea there would be that we basically all sign into this trust. We all kind of put our incomes towards the trust. And then the trust itself applies to purchase a piece of land. And then, we would have to build whatever houses or whatever we did on that, and try to attack it from that angle together as a family. Um, that's a big commitment. You know what I mean? Like everybody has to be willing to be in one place and all that kind of stuff and stick to it for the long haul. But I think that's might be one way that you could potentially do it. Tag, do you have any other thoughts on how 20 somethings are going to be able to?
I'm probably going to get hate mail over what I'm about to say, but if you took the average 20-year-old's partying budget, it would more than pay for a piece of land. I'll start right there. Okay. So it's about priorities and it's about commitment to what you want to do. The other thing is, let's just say you couldn't do it. That you're making $15 an hour and there's just no way. Well, what I would recommend you do is find a community somewhere, live in that community, whether it's in an apartment in the town or whatever it is, and build some trust. Because once you do that, things will open up, right? I know a whole bunch of 85-year-old farmers who would love some help on their land, whole bunch. And so, but the problem is you'll never knock on the door and get that deal.
That makes sense.
Who the hell are you? You're never getting there. So what you got to do. Get involved in the community, build some trust that people know you're not some scumbag.
Sure.
You work hard. You're a decent person.
Yep.
And man, all kinds of things would open up. Me and my wife
show up and buck some hay, in the summertime. Hay's coming up and all that, and be there. Yeah.
Yep. That's what I do. And you do that, you'll be okay.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. Yeah, I think that's great advice. And making that commitment to live in that community, the smaller community is an area that you want to buy the land. That says a lot right there, already. So, and then, like you said, showing up and actually doing the work and, being a good neighborly person that goes out, stops by to talk to people. That's one thing that a lot of people don't understand is, people who are 75, 65, 75, 85 years old, they actually appreciate it when people come by and talk to them when they know them. You know what I mean? They don't see it as an intrusion. They don't see it as the same way that other people do, because that's the way that people used to interact together. They'd stop and talk and catch up and all that kind of thing. And obviously you don't want to do it, interrupt them if they're in the middle of something or whatever. But no, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Getting out there, being a part of the community, even if you have to do it from town.
Fine.
Yeah, and you still, the thing is that if you're living in a small town of 5,000, in my view, you're still way safer than you are living in New York or LA or in a big suburb or something like that. Even if you're living right in town, you're still in a much better situation all the way around. And maybe you have to do that for a couple of years while you save some money or whatever the case may be. But, you're right. You'd make them contacts with people that have land and all that kind of stuff, and you might be able to do something. So
JJ, you and I were talking prior to going live tonight. We were talking about, I found recently, I had someone approach me with 120 acres that they want to make sure gets to the community, and they're not going to give it away. They're going to sell it. Right. Sure. And we got to figure out how to divide it and the price and all of those things. But so once that deal comes up, how do you suppose the community reacts after that? Well, the very first thing is we get it out to the community.
Yeah.
That piece of land will never hit the market. No one will ever know it's there. What we're going to do is take the people who are out here, who work hard. We're going to get together as a community. We're going to send messages out in the way we communicate amongst the community so they get first dibs. This is why the relationship matters.
There you go.
You're not going to get it any other way.
I think that puts a perfect bow on it right there. Relationship matters. And knowing, the folks, the right folks that can make the connections and can help you out and can vouch for you and all that kind of stuff. It really goes a long, long way in developing community and becoming a part of a community and all that. So Very well said. Well, thank you, sir, for coming on. Looks like we're a little over an hour here today, so I'm going to go ahead and get off here, and we'll definitely do it again.
Yeah, sounds good. Anytime, bud.
All right, man.
Appreciate you.
Take care.
Thanks, JJ.